Today marks 30 years since the tragic incident in which 28 protesters and one Ciskei Defence Force soldier died in what became known as the Bhisho Massacre. More than 200 people were wounded when an estimated 80,000 people marched to Bhisho demanding a democratic reform in the former homeland. The Eastern Cape government will commemorate the day by laying wreaths at the burial sites as well as memorial sites. So for more on these activities and just reflecting on this day, we are joined by Ms. Nonceba Kontsiwe, who's the MEC responsible for sports, recreation, arts and culture in the Eastern Cape. MEC, good morning and thanks for speaking to us here on Morning Live.
Good morning, Lebu. Good morning to you and the viewers. Thank you.
MEC, let's just start by speaking about the day. If we could just go back, and one vividly remembers it was such a precarious time in South African society, because while we were seemingly on the way to broader democratic reform in the country, there was, of course, the Boipatong massacre that had taken place just a few months prior to what now became the Bhisho Massacre. So let's just talk about, the events, the time leading up to this tragedy.
Thank you very much, Lebu. People decided to march against the regime of the General Opakozo at the time. And they came in numbers, mobilized all over the Eastern Cape, which was Ciskei and Transkei and South Africa that time. So people marched to Bhisho, and just suddenly they got shot at by the CDF or Ciskei Defence Force people that were instructed to just shoot the people. Then people got injured, some died. Many people got injured, and I believe that the more than 200 are the only those that were admitted to the close by hospitals. Otherwise, others were not. They survived. They managed to escape to their nearest safety places. That is the situation. It was so bad. So it was a somber moment for the people of this province and of this country that day.
It was indeed. And then, of course, in the aftermath of this, there were inquests, and you had the Goldstone Commission that also looked into the events, because there was a claim, for example, that one of the protesters had shot at the Ciskei Defence Force members that led to what ultimately unfolded in terms of the deaths of the 28 protesters. But the inquest found that, in fact, it was a soldier who shot one of his own who was the one who was killed.
Yes, amongst the 28, there is one who was the member of the Ciskei Defence Force. So that one was also shot. The protesters had 28 people that died on the day. So that was that situation. It was very sad indeed.
The Goldstone Commission, though, placed blame on both sides for the violence that ensued. And I think it just in terms of the families, the survivors, how are they doing in coping and coming to terms with how things have been dealt with since the massacre?
Of course, the commission may blame both sides. But the fact is, people were marching peacefully. Government of the Eastern Cape is always committed and consistent in terms of ensuring that government commemorates this day to ensure that memory is not lost, and for the future generations to know that this has happened. So in honor of the lives of these people, the victims of the massacre and the survivors, government is always supporting them. He has built a site in Bhisho, which is a monument outside Bishop Stadium, which was unveiled by Bishop Tutu in 1997. Then in 2019, government built a 60 million memorial called the Bhisho Massacre Conduct Center in memory of those that fell and the victims and the survivors, the victims, families, and the survivors.
And how much more has been done for them? And I just want to quote former President Nelson Mandela at that time. And this is what he had to say, and I quote, he said, "Each one of the people who lost their lives at Bhisho on the 7th of September was a unique human being, the daughter or the son of some mother, the father or a mother to some child, a person linked to a home, to a community of relatives and friends who had loved, cherished and nurtured her or him for many years in the hope of continuing and a shared future." So, unquote. So obviously this was, as I say, a very tense time, a very precarious time during that transition period for South Africa to democracy. But at the time, there were promises of monetary compensation for each of the survivors or the families of those who were killed. Can you just bring us up to speed in terms of what exactly the amount was and what happened to the beneficiaries? Did they actually get those compensations?
Yes, Lebu, government paid all the beneficiaries of the victims and the survivors an amount of 30,000 rand each, especially those that were identified. So that was in the form of a compensation, and those are the ones that appeared before the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. So there are records that confirm that indeed they were paid this amount of 30,000 rand.
And of course, I can just imagine people saying now, well, 30,000, but you know, that's a debate that will carry on forever and a day, because in the end, you cannot put a monetary value on someone's life. But beyond the commemorations and beyond the 30,000 rand compensation, what else has been done for those families in trying to uplift them?
Government has built some offices for the foundation of Bhisho Massacre, where they are working from. Also, that the beneficiaries for the victims are provided with bursaries, especially those that qualifying. Even other departments like Human Settlement is prioritizing providing houses for those that do not have, those who are the beneficiaries of the victims and the survivors. Also, they are provided some projects to sustain them economically, those that qualify. So government is looking after them through their foundation, which is supported on an annual basis, or they are continuously supported. As we are preparing for this commemoration, we are working together with the foundation of the Bhisho Massacre.
So let's talk about the commemoration and exactly what will be happening today and where.
What is going to happen today is going to be the wreath laying in the graves that are in Ginsberg location in Qonce, and then to the Bhisho Memorial, where the Bhisho actually stadium is. Then thereafter, there's going to be a formal program which is going to be addressed by our Honorable Premier, Honorable Oscar Mabuyane, in the Christian Center. Otherwise, the victims, the beneficiaries for the victims and the survivors through their foundation will also be there and be just to be encouraged and talked to and encouraged that we don't want this day to be forgotten by even their future generations.
If we don't want the day to be forgotten, what is being done beyond today's activities and commemoration to, in fact, keep memory alive and to make sure that the story of the Bhisho Massacre and other events are actually being passed down and taught to the new generations? What is being done intentionally about that?
As we are doing this commemoration every year on this day, we keep on supporting the beneficiaries of the victims and the survivors, so that they even do not forget or see that government is committed to supporting them as they were victims for the good cause or survivors for the good cause. So government is then having projects given to those beneficiaries of the survivors or beneficiaries of the victims and the survivors. So government is always looking at them, looking forward to look at their life being sustained, of course, with other people, that is the people that are said to be destitute in the province of the Eastern Cape.
MEC, what are some of those projects that the survivors are, engaged in?
Some of them are housing projects, because we find that some beneficiaries of the victims do not have homes. So they are prioritized by the Department of Human Settlements, and the Department of Social Development is providing some psychosocial services to them. Other departments like education, providing bursaries for those that are the beneficiaries, for the victims that are intending to go to school and further their education. There is a lot even on the projects like your EPWP, they are considered because some of them really need something to survive on. So those are the projects that we think that as government, we show support to them.
But it's 30 years on, and one has to wonder, okay, perhaps not 30 years of a democratic dispensation, but a good 28 years thereof. And in all this time, are we still doing the same things, the ones you mentioned, EPWP opportunities? I mean, if you've provided houses over the past 28 years, surely you would provide a house once, not every year. So what else? What else is government doing?
Government is supporting them. If they come to government and seek some assistance on a particular project, government is supporting them, because not all of them require some houses, and the government has only built one. It is only building a house once in a lifetime. But if they come to ask for some assistance and support from government then is committed to support them.
MEC, what time is the commemoration starting today?
The wreath-laying will start at 8:30. Then we proceed to the Bhisho Memorial Center, put some make some wreath-laying there, and then proceed to the Christian Center, where the program is going to start at 10.
Well, MEC, we'll leave it there, and we will be following up with our reporters there in the Eastern Cape, who will be bringing us those proceedings live as well. But for now, thank you so much for your time. MEC for Sport, Recreation, Arts and Culture in the Eastern Cape, Nonceba Kontsiwe, speaking to us there about the commemoration of the 30th anniversary of the Bhisho Massacre.